Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Pride Weekend is just about to officially kick off in San Diego. Thanks for joining us. I'm Matt Hoffman in for Maya Trabulsi. Of course, there's going to be plenty of partying, but there's also a serious side. KPBS reporter John Carroll is live down at the Pride flag on University Avenue in Hillcrest with more on all of it. John, what's going on down there? I like the shirt.
Hey, thanks, Matt. This is the official 2023 KPBS Pride shirt. We will be a contingent in the parade tomorrow, so come out and give us a wave. But back to here and right now, in a little less than an hour, the tribute to Stonewall rally will officially get underway right here. They are going to raise the Pride flag here at Normal and University. Then we'll hear from various speakers about the meaning of Stonewall all these years later. From the riots at the New York City bar of the same name, where multi-day demonstrations happened in the summer of 1969, credited with kicking off the modern movement for LGBTQ plus equality. Now, what I think you're looking at now is what happened earlier today in Mission Valley. California Senate President Pro Tem Toni Atkins of San Diego held a news conference to announce a piece of legislation she authored that's now making its way through the Assembly. It's called the Bridge Project. You may recall that California bans state-related business travel to a number of states that have anti-LGBTQ plus laws on the books. That number is about to grow to 26 states. Atkins' Bridge Project is an attempt to address the anti-LGBTQ plus laws in those states in a different way. It would create a fund that can be used to reach out, bringing inclusive messaging, discouraging discrimination, and helping members of the LGBTQ plus community feel less isolated. Here's more from Atkins earlier today.
The goal, of course, is to help people see and understand the value of compassion, of reaching past the rhetoric and getting to know one another, as my mom got to know my friends and came so really supportive to the end of her days.
So you can see people are starting to trickle into the fenced areas where the partying will get underway in not too long. The rally gets underway in less than an hour at 6 o'clock right here at Normal and University. Then the big parade kicks off tomorrow morning at 10 right here. It goes north to Quince Drive in Balboa Park, and that's where it ends, Matt. Conveniently, just a short walk from the festival at Marston Point. Matt?
And John, that festival, it gets underway even before the parade starts, right?
That's right. Then it goes through 10 o'clock tomorrow night, and then Sunday from 10 to, it goes to, I believe, 11 tomorrow night. And then on Sunday, it gets underway at 9 and 10, get my times right eventually here. And it all wraps up at 9 on Sunday night. San Diego Pride 2023, and it's hot.
Thanks for that reporting out there, John. The good news is it's expected to be cooler during tomorrow's Pride Parade, but around 750,000 people across the county will be under an excessive heat warning for the next 3 days. Meteorologist Bree Guy has our first look at weather.
Well, it is hot, 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 and we are just going to continue to experience this extreme heat throughout the weekend, even into Monday, as high pressure is large and in charge across the southwest. Now, a little relief along the coast as we have some onshore flow, but as you move inland, well, that's when we really start to crank things up with those daily record highs challenged, highs in the 110s to 120s in the lower deserts, with that risk of heat-related illnesses going to be a top concern, and there are excessive heat warnings in effect as we move more inland too. Highs tomorrow going to be in the triple-digit teens in Borrego Springs, Ramona 100. A little relief there along the coast, but how long is this heat sticking around? We'll have more on that coming up.
California's Central Valley is facing a rare extreme level of heat over the weekend. It's especially dangerous for people working outside as well as those who are homeless. Doctors say the conditions could trigger heat illness in as little as 20 to 30 minutes. And that's even less time for the elderly or those with pre-existing medical conditions. Laura Aguirre has the latest on this unrelenting heat impact.
Triple-digit heat across much of the U.S., and it's only getting hotter. The National Weather Service says a heat dome will reach peak intensity this weekend over the western and southern U.S., pushing temperatures as high as 126 degrees or more across the region.
Heat is fatal. It is something that the public needs to take seriously, and it can impact everybody. Nobody is immune.
Phoenix, Arizona has seen temperatures over 110 degrees for 14 consecutive days. In 5 more, they'll break their previous streak. Forecasters predict over 100 daily heat records could fall over the next 3 days. More than 1,000 were broken in June. Outside workers like delivery drivers are struggling in extreme conditions where it can reach 130 degrees or more inside unair-conditioned trucks. Public pools are now critical cooling centers.
Having a pool like this nearby within a mile, 2 miles of your home is incredibly essential.
One environmental author believes fighting climate change starts with city planning.
But we have opportunities to do amazing things and build cities, for example, in new ways. I mean, a simple example is just sort of more green space and urban trees.
Building more climate change resilient infrastructure is an idea shared by the Biden administration.
Let's redesign it. Let's make it safer and more resistant to floods or droughts, wildfires, or whatever the biggest threat is.
I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
Lights out in Hollywood. About 160,000 members of the Screen Actors Guild are now on strike. They joined members of the Writers Union, and they've been striking since May. And as Ivan Rodriguez explains, this effectively brings all TV and movie productions to a grinding halt.
Actors hitting the picket line Friday, going on strike against television shows and movie productions for the first time since 1980.
We are being victimized by a very greedy entity.
The SAG-AFTRA strike, crippling a TV and movie business already limping during the Writers Guild of America's strike. Both guilds are upset over compensation in the streaming era.
There's a whole middle class of writers and actors that is disappearing because they're making it more and more difficult to just make a living.
Along with better pay, actors say residuals for past work have been dried up since the rise of streaming services. Concerns about artificial intelligence are another sticking point in negotiations. Studios say they've offered the highest % increase in minimum pay in 35 years.
There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic, and they are adding to a set of challenges that this business is already facing.
For viewers, the impacts on their screens could be felt by the end of the year.
The movie productions will shut down. TV productions have shut down. Many have already shut down because of the writer's strike. So we're going to see, season premieres happening much later.
I'm Ivan Rodriguez reporting.
As we've reported, the 2 Hollywood strikes mean that actors and writers cannot promote their projects, and that's happening at next week's San Diego Comic-Con, or not happening, I should say, but the show must go on. The Gaslamp Quarter is beginning to transform. Buildings wrapped in promotions for streaming series and movies, and banners are hanging from street lamps. Lou and Mickey's restaurant manager, Lynette Beatty, says even with the strikes, she's expecting the same large number of crowds as usual.
Right directly across the street from the convention center, there's a lot going on right in front of us, even outside the building, so we get a lot of foot traffic just walking by us. It's beneficial being the first restaurant once they leave there, so we tend to fill up and we get a lot of people watchers.
The convention is sold out and runs from next Wednesday through Sunday. We have a page on kpbs.org dedicated to all things Comic-Con. Just click the link on our homepage. Nearly 400,000 ballots are in the mail. It's for next month's special election to replace former San Diego County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher. A special primary election for the county's 4th supervisor district will take place on August 15th. The winner will serve the remainder of the term ending in January 2027. But if no candidate receives a majority vote, a special general election will be held on November 7th. District 4 includes parts of San Diego, Lemon Grove, La Mesa, and El Cajon. Voters should be getting their ballots by next week. Former SDSU Aztec punter Matt Ariza appeared in court today in an ongoing civil case against him. A then 17-year-old girl accused Ariza of raping her at a house party near San Diego State University. KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen has the latest developments.
There is the broad protective order that exists starting now going forward.
A judge today granted former NFL and Aztec punter Matt Ariza's request for a protective order. His attorneys argue that it was needed to protect him from unwanted annoyance and embarrassment. Dick Semerjian is Ariza's attorney.
When documents are produced from the police department, that they're kept somewhat confidential to the extent that they're not going to be available to the public until the judge rules that they can be.
The order is also meant to save time and cost in getting evidence from the San Diego Police Department. Otherwise, the police would have to spend time and effort in redacting sensitive information.
This was an unusual protective order.
Judge Matthew Branner notes that it was unusual to grant a protective order to save the defense money, but he says the order was broad enough to protect all parties involved. But the contentious point today is over whether Ariza's attorneys should be able to make inquiries into the young woman's sexual history.
The ability to challenge plaintiff's allegations and damages are essential to a fair trial for a defendant.
This stems from the claim the young woman made, saying she contracted an STD from the alleged rape. She has since walked back on that claim, but the defense says her sexual past is still relevant to the case.
Not necessarily having to do with consent on that night, but having to do with her truth and veracity.
Jim Mitchell, attorney for the young woman, opposes that, saying what happened on October 17, 2021 is on trial here, not anything before that.
So the other issue is this idea, well, we need to find out whether the plaintiff had the capacity to consent. And I look at that at this point as a red herring.
The court is leaning toward allowing discovery on the plaintiff's sexual history. Ariza's attorney is asking for that period to be extended based on new evidence. The judge is asking both sides to confer on that new evidence before issuing a ruling. The defense is seeking the young woman's history from October 2020 through October 2022. Judge Branner ordered both sides to return in 2 weeks to argue the point. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Tensions were high during an emergency meeting at the state capitol. The State Assembly's Public Safety Committee passed a bill making selling a child for labor or sex a serious felony. Republican State Senator Shannon Grove wrote the measure. It prevents repeat child traffickers from getting out of prison early. It would also subject offenders to harsher sentences.
Selling our children should not be an option in the state of California, and today I am excited that the Public Safety Committee reconsidered the bill.
This bill, knowing like you can spend the rest of your life in jail if you come for our children, is a game changer.
Democrats on the committee initially blocked the bill, saying that it still needed work, but approved the measure after intense backlash. 800,000 borrowers will soon have their student loan debt wiped away in the coming weeks. The Biden administration announced $39 billion in debt relief. It's the result of an administrative fix that more accurately counts qualified monthly payments. There's several different income-driven repayment methods for borrowers. They base repayments on income and family size regardless of total outstanding debt. After 20 or 25 years of qualified payments, a borrower's remaining balance will be forgiven. Some local college students are getting help with their higher education. The San Diego Foundation recently awarded millions of dollars in scholarships. KPBS reporter Melissa May has the story of one of those students.
The San Diego Foundation Community Scholarship Program awarded $4 million in scholarships to over 1,000 local college students, including Andrea Barajas.
And I just started crying. I honestly did, because it was just really exciting to know that someone was there to like support me, I guess, and like other people who didn't have all the resources that they needed. And so that was really exciting.
She just graduated from the Preuss School at UCSD and is a first-generation college student. Her scholarship will help her attend UC Berkeley this fall. She also has grants and financial aid that will cover most of the cost of tuition and housing.
Having like ways to access certain opportunities is a big thing. And I think college is like a really great place to do that. And yeah, just furthering that education to be able to have those opportunities that weren't always granted to people before me.
Like Andrea, 70% of the scholarship recipients are the first in their families to attend college, and 92% are from economically disadvantaged to middle-income communities that are historically underrepresented in higher education.
They're really happy about getting their award letters, but then they're like, how am I going to pay for it? And I know Andrea was one of those students. You know, she was really excited about Berkeley.
Julian Villalvaso is the College and Career Success Specialist at the Barrio Logan College Institute, a nonprofit after-school program that helps children achieve a college education. He first started working with Andrea when she was in 10th grade.
She has a very determined attitude of, you know, she knows what her goal is and she wants to pursue it, and she's going to do what it takes to pursue it. So, you know, I could tell just by working with her and seeing her succeed year in and year out.
The San Diego Foundation partners with nonprofits like the Barrio Logan College Institute. Scholarship awards average $4,000.
And the work that they do to make sure that our students have scholarships so they don't have to worry about the financial aspect of college, it makes a big difference.
He says 100% of the students who graduate from the Institute go to college, and 71% graduate from college with a bachelor's degree.
So we're seeing a lot more students that are the first in their families to get a college degree, and you know, that's furthering our families along and hopefully collectively our communities along, and that's really what we want to do.
Andrea says she plans to study cognitive science and wants to get the education that her parents couldn't. She also wants her parents to know how grateful she is.
Thank you for everything. Yeah, because you've done so much, and I don't know, I couldn't thank you more because everything that you've given me is like more than enough.
Melissa May, KPBS News.
We have an update on the story of a nearly $1,300 natural gas bill. Jack Babbitt reached out to KPBS looking for answers that he could not get on his own. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has this follow-up.
Jack Babbitt's decades-old trailer home sits in a Fallbrook Valley that was pretty cold this past winter. But cold temperatures are not enough to explain his $1,282.53 natural gas bill in January. Babbitt's grandson said Jack has questions.
Nobody follows the rules better than Jack. You know, retired Navy chief. He's used to taking orders and he's used to doing what needs to be done. But he's also used to things being in order.
Guests tell him called SDG&E after the big bill, and the utility told him the bill was accurate and nothing else was done. Babbitt's home has an analog gas meter that can only be read if someone actually comes out to the property. His San Diego gas and electric bill show that didn't happen for 9 months before the huge January bill dropped.
The bill says that there were 9 estimates in a row, but in reality, we went to Mr. Babbitt's home 2 or 3 days after we sent him the bill, and that happened several times. So while the bill identified an estimate, in reality, truthfully, we missed 1 estimate, and that was in November.
It is an explanation that Gastelum is still struggling with.
They told me that they did estimated, yes, it says we did estimates for all these months, but really we sent someone out to really read the meter a few days after the estimate, which just doesn't make sense to me, and so that's mysterious too.
Estimated bills indicate much lower gas use in the 6 months before the January bill. Usage in January was 274 therms.
He had a legitimate frustration, and there's no doubt once there was human intervention that we could have done better, and we have attempted to work with KPBS, to work with Mr. Babbitt's grandson in order to make it right.
KPBS contacted San Diego Gas and Electric on June 27th. The utility conceded the high gas usage in the months before January's bill was not accounted for in its computer's estimated readings.
In October, November, December, he actually used 274 therms, but it charged him the 274 therms when the rate was the highest in January at $5.11.
That was more than double December's natural gas rate. 2 days after KPBS brought the oversized bill and the estimated readings to the utility's attention, SDG&E inspected the mobile home.
We forensically looked at Mr. Babbitt's bill, and then we went out to the home and we checked each appliance. We shut off each appliance so that no gas was going to the home. And then we checked the meter to ensure the meter was not registering a leak somewhere.
Castellum found a faulty heating duct 3 months after the big bill, which likely contributed to the unusually high usage. SDG&E turned down the water heater temperature. Babbitt got information on low-income and medical bill assistance, and he was promised the utility will bring in a third-party contractor for a complete home energy audit. The bill review also prompted the utility to recalculate the January bill, spreading the gas usage over the previous 3 months. The result was a $351 bill credit.
We did everything within our power to ensure that his bill was accurately addressed and that we signed Mr. Babbitt up for other programs to defray the future cost of his bill. But we care, we get it, and we could have done better.
Castellum appreciates the bill credits, home inspection, and information about ways to control gas bills in the future, but he's disappointed he couldn't get the same response on his own.
But we should not have had to talk to you to get the right result. We should have been able to do that by talking to SDG&E.
Castellum says he looks forward to the energy audit, and he hopes future bills are smaller and rely less on estimates, so Babbitt isn't hammered by an oversized bill next winter. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
The San Diego-based Utility Consumers Action Network, they regularly mediate bill issues with SDG&E and their customers.
Well, is it hot in here? Well, it is certainly hot outside. Let's take a look at your weather headlines. Hint, a lot of it has to do with the heat. It's going to be toasty this weekend with heat waves along the inland communities with some cooling along the coast, but most of the region is going to be abnormally hot as high pressure is large and in charge. Those daily record highs are going to be challenged even through the weekend, Saturday into Monday. Highs going to be running in the 110s and, yes, 120s toward the lower deserts. Risk of heat-related illnesses. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself in the heat. Take plenty of cooling breaks. And again, it is going to be a little cooler along the coast, so if you are looking for some relief, it's not going to be cold, but not as hot as we move a little bit further inland, and that's why we have these excessive heat warnings and watches on the board, even heat advisories that are going to be more inland into the deserts and the mountains because things are really starting to heat up. And tonight we're just dropping down to a low of 66 in San Diego, but then by tomorrow morning, well, you'll see the numbers themselves. They don't lie. We're in the triple-digit teens in Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna, high of 80, Ramona 100, San Diego, Chula Vista in the mid-70s, not too shabby. But then even as we head a little bit further inland, well, that's when things start to get relatively uncomfortable. Here along the coast, well, we're going to be staying in the 70s, but upper 70s, flirting with 80s by Sunday, and then we are in the 80s by Monday, so hot with plenty of sunshine. Inland, well, we're going to be ranging in the upper 90s for the end of the weekend into the beginning of the week, with 90 sticking around even through Tuesday. Now for the mountains, it is going to be relatively hot for Saturday, but we're dropping down to the 70s again Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, but a high of 87 by Wednesday. Now the deserts, well, you're staying in the triple-digit teens over these next 5 days. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
School is still in session for students enrolled in summer classes, and KPBS education reporter MG Perez tells us about a curriculum that's out of this world.
3, 2, 1.
Getting off the ground is just the first stretch of the millions of miles it would take to make it to Mars. These are not real rockets, although their failure brings some very real feelings.
When it crashed, we saw that the part of this was burnt.
12-year-old Martin Torres and his classmate 13-year-old Tiny Tucker know the agony of defeat when it comes to rocket science.
I'm pretty sure we used the Elmer glue. We should have used the hot glue since it was stronger.
This rocket design team is one of dozens made up of San Diego Unified Middle School students spending 5 weeks in summer school. The lessons are embedded in science, technology, engineering, and math, with focus on planning a supply mission to a colony on Mars.
What I've heard is like it's a red planet, it's dry, like a desert.
Luis Rebollar wants to be a professional soccer player someday. He's thinking about how that would work way out there.
It would be kind of weird because of the gravity, and like the ball would go everywhere. When you kick it, it's just gonna go.
When we were creating our game, we were supposed to make this spaceship move.
Spaceships and rockets are critical to the Mars mission. These students are using a video game to design theirs, which gets you into outer space much easier and safer, too.
For me, the thought of going into space is kind of scary, but I would like to research many things in space, like planets and black holes and stuff.
Video games seem like a way to engage older students who didn't put a lot into school, and it seems that even those kids, when video games are on the table, they start getting into it.
You could create something and it won't always come out as planned, but that's how you fail and have trials and you learn better, so next time it'll be easier.
For Martine and Tiny, failure is not an option after learning their lesson.
We're gonna figure out how to do it perfectly to the last bit. We're gonna glue it correctly, and we're gonna launch it again.
Mission accomplished. MG Perez, KPBS News.
Tonight's stories are on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Matt Hoffman. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.